Hello and welcome to the first episode of The Legal Dad. My name is Pádraig and I'm here to help people through a very traumatic experience in their lives, and that be going through a family court case, especially when there's children involved. So I hope you enjoy the episode. This one is probably going to be kind of short, more of an introduction into what the goal is here, introduce myself and kind of give a broader outlook on what you can expect from future episodes. So in this episode, it's more about introducing myself. My name is Pádraig Walsh. I am an attorney. I'm licensed to practice in the state of Minnesota. I try to concentrate on working with fathers who are having legal issues gaining access to their children. Usually this happens after a divorce, sometimes during a divorce, where children are being used. Now, I'm not going to get into all the legalities and stuff like that. I'm going to have other people do that in the future, but just kind of an introduction to myself. Originally from Ireland, worked construction for a lot of years after emigrating to the US in 1990. I'm actually a carpenter by trade. See these hands? That served me well. I was very fortunate. I was able to travel to many places around the US and around the world working in construction. How I ended up in the legal field was I went through an experience with divorce, which I wish on nobody. The experience taught me a lot about people. Now, when my divorce was filed, it was by no ways, I'm not an innocent party. I definitely had a lot to do with why the divorce came about. But it was after the divorce that I felt that I had to try and do something to help people, and that was to become an attorney. You see, after my divorce, I have a son from my previous marriage. I ended up having to go to court for a number of years just to try and get access to my child. I believe, now again, there's two sides to every story, but I believe my child was the last weapon that was left to be used against me. So I felt kind of vengeful to be using a child in that way. Taking a child away from the father. Yes, myself and my ex, we did not get along. Our relationship totally broke down, but I don't believe that my child should have been brought into that. We should have been able to keep a higher level of our relationship and not pass it down to my son. But after a number of years of in and out of court and paying attorneys, I basically ended up with zero. So yeah, it was a very traumatic part of my life. It was one that, again, very learning, but how would I put it? I had a decision to make after I left court for the final time. And that decision was, what do I do now? Do I pretend everything is okay and move on, work in construction? Do I go and do something silly because my mind is all over the place? Or do I try and make a difference? So my choice was to try and make a difference. At the time, I was about 34 years old. I quit working construction and I went back to school because when I emigrated to the US, I had high school education from Ireland and that was it. I had no college education. So I went back to school to get my bachelor's degree first. Then I was very fortunate to have been accepted into a law school in Buffalo, New York, where I completed my law degree. After I completed my law degree, spent some time trying to figure out how to help the greatest number of people that I could. Now, setting up a law firm is one thing. You can help one person at a time, but I still wanted more as far as helping a greater number. So what my goals are here at The Legal Dad is, one, I can represent you. If you are in the state of Minnesota and you're having legal issues gaining access to your kids. Two, what I want to do is bring other legal minds onto the show to have them kind of explain from their point of view what goes into the legal process, how to file a claim, how to answer a claim, filling affidavits, what the rules are, what the laws are that people are dealing with. But the bottom line is there's a duty for a parent to be part of their child's lives. But then to add on to that, there are a lot of people who cannot afford an attorney and have decided to represent themselves. So I'm hoping that some of that legal information will be very beneficial to them as they move forward in a pro se situation, being the Latin for me, myself. But to be pro se is one thing. You can do a lot of research. You can put together a brief like anybody, can. Most of the information that you're going to need it already exists. It's on Google and Google Scholar, and there's your local courts have a lot of good information with forms and stuff like that. And to build an argument and to build a brief and to tell your story on paper is definitely one thing. But then to go into a court and speak in front of a judge is totally another. Because a lot of the time you may have an aggressive opposing counsel, in my case I did, who would basically call you names and say things that basically are not true. But it's all to get you riled up, to get your blood pumping so that you flip out. And if you flip out in front of a judge, basically you've already put yourself into a stereotype. So in this show, I'm also going to bring on people who I know who are very good mindset coaches to help you with what one of my friends calls warrior mind. And it's all about focus and about training, so that when you do end up in a situation where you are representing yourself, or if you do, I hope you don't, but if you do end up in a situation where you are representing yourself, that you will be able to focus, clear, straight line. And no matter what the other side throws at you, that you still stick with the plan. Because the judge, they don't want to hear you screaming, he said, she said, because then there's nothing for the judge to do. There's nothing a judge can do. It's all hearsay. He said, she said. What a judge needs is a logical step-by-step argument. And that being, you need to know the law, know how the law is applied. How you know how the law is applied is through previous court cases which have gone before. So that's your legal research and stuff. And then basically tell your story that fits into cases that you found in your research, that basically, your fact patterns are similar. You might have 10 cases, each one for one individual fact pattern. But if you can say to the judge, here, judge, here's the law, here how it's applied. My case is very similar to this because of A, B, and C. But mindset is going to be crucial. During the process of building your case, your health is going to be crucial. Your sleep is going to be crucial. So I have a very good friend of mine who's a dentist who specializes in sleep for children, for adults, that being it's all about airway and about breathing. But if you're not sleeping properly, it affects your mindset and it affects your thinking. It affects your daily life. So sleep is going to be a topic we're going to touch on. Health and wellness, exercise, how you eat, your diet. I have other friends who this is what they specialize in. So I'm going to get them on the show. Because when you end up in a very traumatic situation, and this happens every day, millions of people end up in this traumatic situation. It's like losing somebody to death, being taken away from your children. And that's how I can describe it. It's like losing somebody in your family. So you get into a very traumatic state. You're angry, you're fearful, you're not sleeping, you lose interest, you may lose your job. So my goal here is, one, help you with the legal process by having conversations with attorneys. Two, your health, your mindset. How are you going to move forward to make sure you don't lose your job, to make sure you can still get up in the morning? Because this is how bad it gets, that you just feel like you just don't want to get up. Your diet is very important because this is going to be a pretty heavy lift, especially if you're planning on doing it by yourself. But also, even if you have hired an attorney, it's still a pretty heavy lift. Also, when we're talking to attorneys, we're going to talk about what an attorney can do better. Because when you're the person who has hired the attorney and you're involved in this family court issue, but you see your attorney at court, but then you don't hear from them for could be weeks. Then your mind starts playing tricks and it starts playing games with you. How what can an attorney do to help you to basically, how can the attorney help law meet humanity? Because the law is one thing, but humanity is a total other thing. But how can we make them both meet together? Because some attorneys, it's the law. This is it, A, B, and C, it's the law. But then you have somebody who's just freaking out. So how can an attorney better help their client, not just with the law part of it, but also with contact, keeping in touch? Because even that one line email once a week, even if it's to say, listen, I'm still here. Sorry, I don't have any news for you this week, but I will be in touch again next week. It really does. It makes you feel better. And then probably last of all, we're going to try and get some judges on to explain what they need to hear. Not what they need to hear, because your story is your story. You can't craft your story to suit somebody else because it's yours. But it's how do you tell that story? How do you tell your story to a judge where the judge can make sense of it all? Where you have a timeline tied in with the facts, tied in with law, tied in with all that kind of stuff. So the hope is to get a couple of judges, family court judges with a lot more experience than I have anyway, onto the show. Actually, that wasn't lastly. Lastly is I would love to have parents, moms or dads on the show. Also adult children who were at one time alienated from their parents or separated from their parents because one parent could not get along with another, to tell their story. This is the most important part of what I'm going to try and do here. It's not what I'm going to try and do, it's what I am going to do. It's have dads who are either in the heat of a court case, dads who have just got through it and come out the other side, dads who have been years out the other side just to see how they are now, to try and help show you that really this is just a blip in the road. If you take your entire life, this is just this big. But when you're in the middle of it, it feels like it'll never end. So dads and moms who have been through it, to hopefully share with you that everything will be all right, that you will get through this. And children who have been alienated or were alienated at one stage and how they feel right now. So maybe some parent who is in the process of withdrawing the children from their parent, that maybe they could hear another child's story who has grown through it and been through it, to it might change their mind. They might just say, you know what, I am bigger than this. Why should my kids suffer? My child deserves both loving parents in their lives. So yeah, so we've got a couple of goals here. I don't think nothing is unattainable. So yeah, we're going to mix it up with legal minds to explain the process, explain some laws, explain what's going on, if there's changes in child support and stuff like that, explain what their processes are in their office, explain how they keep in contact with the client. But then also to have judges on board to explain, hey, this is how you tell a logical story to a judge. But yeah, mindset training, health and wellness, sleep, and most importantly, parents and children who are going through it and have gone through it. So I hope you can join me for my next episode. I will dive a little bit deeper into my own story. You can follow me at The Legal Dad on Facebook. I also have this YouTube channel where this will be going. I do have a TikTok, believe it or not, TikTok, who knew, at The Legal Dad. Basically do any searching, and if you do at The Legal Dad, you should find me. My website is thelegaldad.com. And yeah, I look forward to you joining me for the next episode. Thank you so much. This is Pádraig, The Legal Dad.